some reason we think we're Colorado and not Texas. The weather forgot to bring our warm. I am going to be back in 1 second. You guys can get settled, get water, and we're going to get started in about a minute.
She's converting it.
Yes.
To like, yeah.
Yes. So if I should tell you, I was going to put the chat up front. So when I got home today, I thought this is the first time since October I've not needed help.
I love it.
Maybe because of this. They come in and I'm like,
behind that, but
I'm on this little bad.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Good, thanks.
So do we still have our time for a coffee? Oh, sure.
There's always time. How are you, cutie?
Thank you. Good.
yeah.
All right, we're going to get started. We're going to get this money party started. We should be throwing like money out, Jeff. We should be having like either candy or dollar bills or $100 bills from the market center, not our pocket.
Or just print them.
Print them, yeah, exactly. I love all your shirts that say love and all the hearts and all the warm, fuzzy stuff you guys are wearing today. Thank you, everybody that's watching. We are ready to get started. No.
You were pause on the people.
Mute or pause. Wonderful. We got the music off. What we are going to talk about today, we're super excited about this new series. And this series is about money. And we have some special friends that are doing an amazing job right now that have been doing a Net Millionaire class. They've added a couple other words to it, and they are have been doing it for quite some time. And they're the second group of people that I know that are doing this. And we've been talking, I've been talking to Mary a lot about it. And I've heard all the success that they have. And I said, we want to get started with that in our market center. So the way it's going to work is, as it starts to progress and we have these classes, this is our first class, then we'll have a class in 2 weeks in person, and then we'll start doing a monthly class. What the monthly class will look like and what they're doing is they literally have a book that they go through every single month, and then we'll all help with that. And then they have their 5-year goal, and then they have their net wealth. So they have a sheet or a budget or something that's tracking their net wealth. And with that, first of all, are you guys too warm in here? Because we put the heat hot this morning. Are you guys too warm? Just like a squirrel. I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable. Sorry. So what we want to tell you is that
Might be later.
I don't have the remote though, so. All right. So as we go through this, so that those will be the 3 things in the future that you will bring, and I'm going to continue to meet with them, and they're going to continue to share. They make sure that that everybody brings their net worth, so that they are held accountable to that. So we will talk about how to track that and what that looks like, and we will get started. All right, does anybody want to read this?
I will.
All right.
Your money mind is your emotional relationship with money. Each of us has a bias around money based on our core values, upbringing, and beliefs. Your money mind is what drives your ability to save more, make more, and stop stressing about money. Be sure to have a positive relationship with money.
How many of you guys agree with that statement? I mean, our core beliefs are something that was instilled in us, whether we watched our parents work or not work with money, the things they believed, the things that were around us, the experiences we had. For all of you guys that are in the classroom that have gone gold, raise your hand. So mostly all of you. So with the show of hands, you guys have been through bold, and how many of you guys remember Point Far? All right, most of you. So Point Far, and I remember it because I added energy to it, right? It's everything that's in our programming equals our thoughts equal our feelings equal our actions equal our results, and then it goes back into programming. So programming, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, and it goes back the same way. So if someone has a negative programming around money, or one of my friends said that her father always would say, because they were really big givers, and they spent most of their time just helping churches and everything else, and that he put this thought in her mind that people that were wealthy were stingy people because they were not the ones voluntarily giving their money away. You're shaking your head, Sheila. Is that what you've heard before?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just their beliefs, right? Or their fears. And then I had another friend that said, our parents saved so much that we never got to buy new clothes. We got all the hand-me-downs, but they had so much savings when they passed. So it's just the way they looked at money and their core beliefs. All right. Anyone else want to read this?
I'll read it. All too often we take on other people's beliefs about money regardless of whether those beliefs are true or not. Our core beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world mostly came from our childhood, parents, siblings, teachers, etc. And these beliefs can turn into self-fulfilling prophecies if they're not overcome.
Gosh, that's absolutely correct. Do you guys believe that? So what does that mean, anyone? Well, let's look at some of the affirmations we say. Money is the root to all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. And wealthy people are greedy. Anything else? What have you heard growing up?
The stingiest.
Stingies. What else? What else did you guys hear growing up? Anything else?
Poor.
What was that?
Poor. We're poor.
Poor. We're poor. You've heard we're poor. And I love that you say that, because we, my siblings and I, there's 5 girls, and we would always say, and we're all at different levels, and you think we're all raised in a different house, and we weren't. And we would say, I talked to my sister, I called her, I said, hey, how do you look at money, and what did you believe with, our mom and our dad, because they divorced when we were very young. And they all have different beliefs. And I know my mom never told me we were poor, but we grew up on food stamps. We grew up on food boxes. We always had a roof over our head, but she never told me that. So I never knew we were poor. I never knew that boiling water to go take a warm shower, that was a big deal. I mean, our gas got turned off, and I didn't know it was our gas being turned off. And, we lived in the same house growing up, and then I would go to my father's house, and he was an executive, he was remarried, and they had a gorgeous house. And I remember when they moved into a new house, and they put their pool in, and then they had their initials on their gate to go into the pool. And I used to think, so I got to see 2 worlds that were so different. And my mom never talked bad about him or anything like that, so we never knew. And when I was volunteering, Jeff took us to a volunteer for his company at one of the food places here in Houston. It was
Houston Food Bank.
Houston Food Bank. It used to be like Cisco or one of the big trucking companies, because have you guys ever been there? And it's the most amazing food bank I've ever been to, because in Arizona it wasn't that fancy. And our kids, my son has, it was air conditioned and beautiful, and everything went around on a conveyor belt. You didn't have to carry big old boxes. And my son looked at me and said, did we ever have a food box growing up? And I said, no. I said, but I did. I know what government cheese looks like, and man, we love that block of cheese. That something could stay out and last. And
Yes, even better.
Yes, and even better. Did you ever have that or see that?
Oh, yeah, we grew up on that.
So several of you guys. And I don't say that to be sad. I say that because why I tell you that is because you're going to see as we start to grow, you're going to see where my money, my bad habits came from, and I'm going to be very transparent. And it's quite scary. I have talked about things, and I shared with Jeff, and I'm like, am I ready to dive deep? About 3 years ago, would you say, about when I started to look at money and say, I need to figure this out?
Yes.
About 3 years ago, I went to Jeff, and bless his heart, you're such a good husband. I used to call him and say, how much money do we have? Especially when he didn't work with me. And I was going to buy something or do something, and he'd be like, why? And I would always ask him, what's in our checking account? What's in our savings account? what's our bank account number? And before I was married to Jeff, I ran all the finances in my old marriage. I worked in banking, that's where we met. And when I married him, and he was such a well-minded accountant, I always say he's like an accountant in my, and he took over the finances, and I said, I'm never gonna look at them again. I made some really deep validations, which we call the affirmations, or what is the other thing that we call them in our marriage class?
The norms?
Our norms, but there's another word I can't think of, that we say that we make these solid vows inside of us, and I can't think of the name that we use in our marriage class, that I'm not gonna look at finances anymore. And quite frankly, something happened at the very beginning of when Jeff and I got married, is I had 2 other houses in my first marriage, and I made a lot of money, and then the market crashed, and I went back to work, and that's where I met Jeff, was I slowly started to lose my credit when I was getting married to him, or right before I met him. One house got repossessed while we were in there was tenants in there that had left, while we were trying to get a short sale on it. My ex-husband was going through his own issues and was eventually keeping that house for a couple years and then lost that. My credit score went down so much, I went from an 800 FICO score that Jeff would say, yeah, you're at a 700, you're at a 600, and eventually I told him to stop telling me because it would make me so anxiety and frustration. And I didn't know credit scores could go all the way down to, where was I at?
450.
450. So I didn't even know credit scores went down to 450. And Jeff didn't even go lower, and I'm like, dang it, I almost went all the way to the bottom. I should have kept going just to kind of see where I could have went. Now I say that and I laugh today, but 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I would not have been laughing. I would have been crying, because I did. I cried lots of times.
And we had to adjust our lifestyle around that.
Yeah, we had to adjust our lifestyle around that. And I remember when I talked to Jeff and told him I wanted to come back into real estate, and Jeff had about $10,000 in savings, and he said, we're fine, you can give up that income from the bank, we'll be good. And then months and months went, like all of you know, and the transaction didn't come, and I kept going and checking with him. He's like, we're fine another month, we're fine another month. And then finally we started to live on our credit cards. We started to charge on some of our credit cards for several months.
Which is highly against my norm.
Highly against it. You're gonna see, we took a test, Jeff and I, and we're gonna see how different we are. We're gonna show you. And anyways, you're gonna cover that. But where we are today is so different in 6 short years of where we turned all of this around, and how I built, and by the grace of God and the blessings from you,
And your good work.
how we have built my credit score back up, how I was so happy to apply for my own car, and I'm like, I don't need you to sign for me, Jeff, I can do this again. And where we are today, and that will be the fast forward that we'll share with you, that will be the transparency that will show you all our numbers as time goes by, not today, but in the next couple months, because we started tracking it, and I learned, I know what my account numbers are now, I can get on the app now, and sometimes I drive them another way. Now I'm like, look at this, what's this charge? And he's like, I got it, I can handle this. One thing that was really interesting, we were first dating, actually I think we had just got married, and Jeff wanted to be nice about telling me my spending habits were way too high, and he spent hours, and most men would just come up, or women would come up to their spouse and say, hey, you're spending too much money, you spent $1,000 today or whatever. He spent hours creating a spreadsheet, and he said our household accounts, our tithing, all this other extra stuff we're paying for, and in this corner down here, and I remember it was on the right bottom corner, he said, all of this I have nothing to do with, and this is what came out. Instead of telling me, and I'm like, I looked at him and I said, how long did this take to make? Why couldn't you just come up and tell me you're spending too much stuff? And that was the way we started to talk about money and things that were happening, and we've had some heated conversations and some heated fellowship around the way we look at money and the things we do. So, do you want to add anything to all that, Peyton?
No, no. No,
Smart man.
That was funny. No, I think you covered it really well.
All right. And and I want you guys to know, it doesn't matter where you are, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like I did, where I was ashamed, I didn't want to open up. There was times I didn't want to open up my mail. There was times I didn't even want to look at my credit score for years. So I want you guys to know that it's not about where you are, it's about where we're gonna go together.
And the one thing I would add to that is that last comment about, why did I take 2 hours to put this together? I think that's a huge piece of conversations in your family about finance. Nobody's wrong. They're not wrong for what they're doing. It's just something that needs to either be adjusted or something that needs to change depending on what your goal is. Because if I came to her and I said, what the heck is your problem? Why do you need 15 pairs of shoes? That's saying you're wrong. You're spending too much money. You're wrong. You're a bad girl. And nobody wants a finger pointed at them telling them they're doing wrong. So that was one of the reasons why I approached it that way, is I said, hey, this is what's coming out. This is discretionary spending. If we keep doing this, we're going to go backwards instead of forwards.
I remember he had just joined my team, which became our team, and I think we're probably 3 months into him joining the market center, and we were in one office, like your office, and there were 3 of us in there, and it's pretty tight corners, and our buyer's agent was in there with us, and he was doing finances, I guess, during the day, or looking at an account, and he said, hey, we spent, I don't know, like $11,000 or $15,000. And I looked at him and said, there is no way we spent $15,000 this month. And we're in the middle of the day with the buyer's agent in our office. And he must have been adding it up, and I grabbed the papers from his hand and added up, and it wasn't including even our mortgages or our bills. It was just spending. And I remember that gut feeling. I came home. Of course, I was very emotional and mad, and I said, don't ever tell me what we spent. But here was the real truth. It was me being a 5-year-old girl, because we talk about that, we go back to our 5-year-old selves. It was me hearing, you're a bad girl, you spent all this money, and how dare you spend $15,000. And again, he spent some of that too, he was just telling me. But it's my programming, my beliefs, and my behavior, my point far, how I reacted to him. The truth was, instead of me looking at him and saying, thank you so much for everything you do, can we talk about this at home? I was very disrespectful to him and to the buyer's agent in our office. And how dare me show up like that, but that was the unhealthy place that I really try not to go to, because it's always going to be inside of me. That fear and anxiety lives there. It's part of my core beliefs. I don't have to let it show up that way. All right, so we're going to go through some questions. And as you go through these questions, you're going to have a little test, and on the stop and pause, it takes about 3 minutes to take. You're going to leave here with some good information about yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to get a piece of paper out, or on your phone, whatever you want to do. And I'll send you guys this PowerPoint so you can share with your team or your family, or look at it for yourself later. 4 questions everyone needs to ask for your financial health. Evaluate your finances, your health, to improve the connection with your finances. Remember, this is all about growing where you're at and what you want to do. The first one is, why do you want to make money? Why do you want to make money? So you can write down a few key words or phrases that you react to when answering the first question. It helps you understand how you're managing your finances. Like, why do you want to make money?
Is this recorded?
Yes. It's streaming too. It's streaming right now, but it will.
I showed it to my husband.
I love that. I have one for spouses and questions that you can sit down and ask your spouse too, so if you want that, let me know. All right, number 2, how much is enough? Think about the reasons you want money and how much you need. During this, it will help, to make a positive spending habit so that you can cause your income, so that you can use your income on things that are important to you. How much is enough? This is an interesting question as you guys write. My son asked me that. My 28-year-old said, gosh, how much is enough money for you? And I thought about that, and he said, with the little bit of sarcasm.
He was very passionate about
And very passionate about it. He wasn't trying to be mean, but he's like, are you enough? Is enough for you, or do you need more? And I'm like, yes. And it's his belief and his core, and I understand where he's at. That's why I didn't get too offended. got so offended about it too. All right, number 3. How will you spend your money? Joe, you want to read that?
Try writing down the different ways you will intend to use your income. Doing this will help you budget for the things that are important to you now and in the future.
All right, number 4. Jeff, you want to read that one?
What legacy do you want to leave? Think about your long-term goals to help you see the different ways your income can be used to help those in the future. These are great questions to share with your spouse if you have a spouse too. See where their heads are.
All right, those are the 4 questions. I'm going to add 3 questions to it. I want you to take a moment and think about how you were raised and how your mom looked at money. And did she teach you about money? How does she look at money? How does she spend money? And how did your dad look at money, talk about money, or interact with money? And then the last thing I want you guys to write down, and we'll move on, is I want you to write down what would the people that are closest to you say about you regarding money. Would they say you're a spender, you're a saver, you're a tightwad? Would they say that you worry about money, you don't worry about money? Looks like a few of you are just about done. Most of you are done. All right, so does anyone want to share any of those last 3 questions? Or any of them? Okay, Carrie?
So I grew up, my parents are divorced, and so I never have memories of my dad living in our household. And my mom was a very hard worker. We did not have much, but like you, it just was what it was. Like, you know, it's not necessarily something I noticed. But I do know, even though we didn't have much, and there were times she worked 2 and 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. And I remember like one year, I didn't get to try out for cheerleading again that year because she just truly didn't have the money for it, right? And that was an impact on me at that time in my life, but I remember that, and she drew a line in the sand, like, we just don't have it. But she, one, always tithed, and I knew that. And she would sit at the kitchen table, and she had this ledger, and she would balance her checkbook, basically. And so I got to see her do that, and and I actually have her ledgers now. She's passed, and I can see we didn't have much at all, but it always worked. But she was very intentional about her money, and I know that it was a point of stress for her because she was solely responsible for us. But yet I highly respect her for it and the values that she taught me around that.
I love that. First of all, give her a round of applause. That's amazing. Do you balance your ledgers and do you sit at the table and do you do all that too?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, I definitely, for the last 10, 15 years or more, have been the one that kind of manages the day-to-day of our finances and our family.
Yeah.
So yeah, my kids see me do that.
I love that. I know you have kids that are different ages, and do you sit down and talk to them about money?
Yeah, we do. So our oldest now, he has money of his own, right? And he just actually signed a contract, and we talk to him a lot about responsibility, thinking for your future. He's young, he's 21. I'm like, you don't want to go spend all this money just because you can, right? And so, but I've talked with him some about, okay, what's your one splurge item? And then, but the value of this career isn't going to last forever. So you have to save what you have now and be able to plan for your future. So those are conversations we've had with him for a long time as we saw him on this path.
That's so
And then my little, we talk about just, oh no, we're not stopping at Chick-fil-A because I'm out of money for that budget right now. We're out of eating out budget. And he's like, but do you have your card? I'm like, no, I don't have a card. And yet, that category is gone. So we're going to go home and eat tonight. Those kinds of conversations.
I love that. Growing up, it was checks. We still have checks now. It's like,
Yeah.
what's your card?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Does anybody else want to share? What about, does anyone want to share about the money or anything like that?
I will.
You will? Okay.
So I grew up in a house, my dad was a producer, and our lives were split. So he was in Hawaii working on Magnum PI, and we were home in Washington by ourselves with my mom. And so they were running 2 households and 2 lives and all those particular pieces. And my mom always managed our books, but it just never seemed like, even though he had this great job, they just always thought that the next paycheck was coming, and they bought boats and did all kinds of crazy stuff. And my mom was just always trying to figure it out. And there would be times when my dad would overspend while he was gone. And you think, oh, he's got this great job, and he's got all this money. But we had a year where we didn't have Christmas, and I didn't understand it. I was really, really little. And I just kept asking. Today as a mother, I feel horrible about it because I just was like, I don't understand. Santa comes to every house. Why is he not coming to ours? And my brother, who's quite a bit older than I am, he'd be really angry. He's like, why can't you guys manage your money? I mean, it's not like money is an issue. And when my parents divorced, my mom didn't have a high school education. She married my dad, and she didn't know what to do. And I was 13, and I was like, we're going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And I went babysitting, and I picked berries, and I just did everything I could while she went to college to figure it out. So that impacted me of, as long as I have myself and my health, and as long as I have drive, the money will always show up.
Yes.
And I saw that even that Will and I kind of perpetuated those habits. And you were talking about you always go back to your 5-year-old self. Having Hurricane Harvey and having our business disrupted, and having a pandemic and having our business disrupted, when the pandemic hit, I just drew a line in the sand. And I said, no more, we're going to change this. So, and we've been working on it and made really great progress. So I'm excited you're doing this.
Thank you. Congratulations. And I love what both of you said. There's some stuff that we witnessed. There's some stuff that we got to experience. And there's some stuff that showed up still today that I'm doing, whether it's the same or different. I spent so much time, and as you get to know me better, in shame. I spent a lot of time in shame through the divorce and through the way we had to live and growing up. And as I uncover that shame, it's really hurt. It's hurt of what we had to see and go through. And I made inner vows. That's the word I was looking for. The inner vow word. I made inner vows that said, I will never do this to my children. I will never do this. The problem was when you go from one extreme to the other, I also show up today and Jeff's like, yeah, that's way out of whack, that you're gonna do this, or pay for this, or wanna do this, because those inner vows that I created, I just thought, well, I'm gonna go to the opposite side of that, and it's not healthy either.
You also have the potential for inhibiting the financial growth or the growth period of those that you're rescuing.
Absolutely, and that's what I would show up as. I'm gonna rescue them, because really, as a 5-year-old girl, I wanted someone to rescue us.
Yeah.
And we still show up that way. And Jeff will remind me, like, you're rescuing, or you're challenging, or you're doing this, and it's really just from pain. And it's overcoming that pain, and that's when 3 years, when I started this journey, it was very painful. And I really believe, if you guys read my post a year ago, I put a very vulnerable post out that I run for my numbers. I haven't watched them as a high eye. We really don't know what our numbers are half the time until we're getting an award. And then you're like, oh, I did all that? Or I'll sit with eyes and they're like, I'm like, you're a great salesperson, but we won't know our numbers. That's just not our gift. Our gift is communication and being there and showing up. And I didn't slow down enough to look at numbers. So with that, we're going to move on. I want to share some things that I've uncovered over the last few years, that 80% of our finances is behavior. So 80% of our finances is just behavior. The other 20% is head knowledge. So as we uncover, we're never going to tell you, Jeff and I, or anyone that shares, because we're going to have lots of guest speakers through the year, already have 3 lined up. We're never going to tell you we're the experts or what they're saying is what's right for you, or what we're saying is right for you. We're just going to tell you how we went from me having a bad credit score, 400, living on credit cards, to being net millionaires and heading to a place where we want to continue to grow, and how we did that, and how it didn't happen overnight, and it won't happen overnight. For some of you it couldn't, if someone left you something or you won the lottery, and we're still praying for all of that too, but we had to sit there and do some behaviors. And it'll always be different for me, and it'll always be different for Jeff on how we do that. So 20% of finances is behavior, 20% is head knowledge. It's not rocket science, of course. If you do these 4 things that we share with you as we start to evolve in these classes, it's 4 things, and everybody will create wealth, and I can guarantee it. Now, what I can't guarantee is the level of wealth you'll create, or what will happen to you or a loved one through the process of your life. We've all experienced things that have happened, whether it's a divorce, or whether it's a loss, or whether it's sickness, or whether it's an accident, or what happened with the pandemic. But what I will promise you is that you will get to a savings and a net place if you do these 4 things. And one of them, of course, you guys all know this, is spend less than you make. Number 1, it's a guarantee. If you spend less than you make, you will be able to save some money. Number 2 is get on a written plan. And I don't care who does the written plan. I don't care if it's Dave Ramsey. I don't care if it's the spouse. I don't care if it's, whoever. If it's your coach, whatever, get on the written plan. And a written plan is different than a budget. And I'll tell you the difference later, because we won't go through all that. And 3 is save for an emergency. Doesn't matter what you save. Some people will say a month. Some people will say $1,000. Save $1,000. Save for a month. Save for 3 months. Save for 6 months. The career we're in, when Jeff came over, I needed to save enough for a year. Because we're both in, well, not anymore, but when he came over, we took his solid income and we were going into 2 sales positions where if we didn't sell a house, there was no money coming in. Now we had health care and we had everything else that had to be covered that he used to carry, including taxes, because he would pay those even out of his. All right, save for an emergency. Personal finances are more about changing our behavior and becoming more mature. And there is no secret, right? There is no secret to any of this. It's just 100% of your behavior and belief and what you choose to do. Doesn't matter where you are today, it matters where you want to go and what you're willing to do. And with all of those things. Number 4 is get on a budget and know what's going in and what's going out. And here's the thing, I'm never going to say, and I'm never going to tell you to do something I'm not willing to do in these classes. And I'll tell you, I'm not Jeff. I won't sit there for 5 hours and go through bank statements and figure it out and add it up and do stuff and create a sheet to be nice, to just say, hey, this is that. It's never going to be me. God didn't create me that way. He created him that way, but I learned something in my marriage class about 8 years into us teaching, is he said something to me that was a light bulb moment, and I'm like, whoa, I used to always make comments that Jeff loves this. And Jeff said, you know, I really don't love this. What I really love is not getting a late fee. What I really love is protecting my credit. He said, I don't love, you say that a lot, that I love numbers and I love the spreadsheets and I love to be geeky on this stuff and I love to spend out. He said, I love what the outcome allows me to do. And I said, wow, I never knew that. And he says, I've learned to sit down and do the behaviors so that I never ever show up late for the check or the payment or anything else. And I do that because I've lived on top ramen and tuna. You guys, it's a thing. I thought he made a sandwich that was tuna and then top ramen. For last night he made it for dinner for me. In 10 years I never knew that. He puts the tuna in the top ramen. It doesn't sound good, but it was delicious. I tried it for the first time. And he ate that for how many years?
2 years straight.
2 years straight.
That also comes from one of my inner vows as well, because I saw my mom always going into debt and having to go to her parents asking for bailouts. And I vowed never to have to go there. And that's why I always make sure I don't have late fees, and that's part of my past.
You'll learn as we get to be fully transparent, is I want to go buy $100 pair of pants, and Jeff's like, I'm not buying those pants. And I'm like, I'm buying them for you. He's like, I don't care, I'm not wearing those pants. He wants to shop at Costco, and I want to shop at Macy's. And once in a while he'll buy at Macy's, but it has to make sense to him and it has to be a good deal. Now he never tells me not to buy the $100 pair of pants. Just don't make him buy the $100 pair of pants. He just doesn't want to. It has to make sense. All right, so Tony Robbins also said that was really amazing, is that he went from $32,000 a year. He was making $32,000 to making $1 million in 1 year when he got a couple of key things right. Here's what he also said. I also stayed in 7 years. I was creating other businesses. When I made my first million, I'm like, okay, I can duplicate this, and he created like 10 to 12 more businesses, and he thought he was going to make another $1 million. He realized for 7 straight years, he continued to make $1 million until he changed the next set of rules and behaviors and beliefs. Because what he said is, he showed up one way to make the 32, he had to show up another way to make the million, and then he stayed stuck for 7 years. Yes, it was great, but he didn't understand why he couldn't break through that. Another thing, have you guys ever heard of the name, to become net millionaires, a lot of people will say, well, I need money to invest, or I need help. I can't do this. I can't save. I live paycheck to paycheck. I spend every dollar. I can't even make ends meet. Have you guys heard that? Yeah, I mean, I've said that. So there is a guy by the name of Theodore Johnson. Have any of you heard his name by a show of hands? Yeah, I know you know. Theodore Johnson made $14,000 as a UPS driver. $14,000. You guys can Google his story. I love these stories. He had a friend come up to him and tell him that he was going to help him become wealthy. And Theodore laughed and said, how are you going to help me become wealthy? I make $14,000 a year. I'm going to teach you how to save. He was teaching a class without even knowing he was teaching a class. And Theodore said, there is no way I can save. I can't save anything. I can barely make ends meet. I make $14,000 a year for me and my family. And he showed him different things and how to do it. By the time Theodore passed away, his net worth was worth $70 million. Is that not incredible? And he also gave away $35 million, they said, when he was still alive. So what he talked about, and Tony Robbins talks about him a lot too, and you can Google his stuff, I'll send it out to you guys, is he talked about the first thing the friend told him is, I want you to start saving 20% of your income. He says, I can't even make ends meet at $14,000 a year. He said, if the government came in and taxed you 20% today, you would kick, scream, say some not nice stuff about them, but you would do it. Because you would have to pay the taxes. It would be your decision. He said, I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to show you how you're going to do that. And one way is, today you're going to start taking 5%, and then every time you get a raise, you're going to ask that employer to take that money and put it in that savings account for you, till we get to 20%. When you get past your 20% savings, then you can start collecting your raise. Because you're making it ends meet now, we're gonna do this. And he got to 20%, and then he invested it and everything else. I'm gonna throw one little nugget, then we're gonna back out of it, because I'm gonna go down a squirrel moment that we can't get out of, and it'll take a while. Is one thing I understood, I called one of my dear friends, and after I started digging deeper into money, and I said, you've been one of my dear friends for about 8 years, and she said 8.5 years, because she's a head tribe like Jeff, she knows numbers. And I said, you're one of the top financial advisors, and you never told me about an index fund. And she goes, your husband knows about an index fund. I said, does he? Do you know that? And I said, also, you never asked me what my fees are now that I'm in the stock market, because yours, when the stock market crashed, I never cared, because I didn't have a dollar in it. Today, I have money in it. Today, we're diversified. And I said, you never asked me what my fees are, if they're 1%, 2%, or if I'm paying 3%. Because here's the thing. If at 35 years old, you or me put $35,000 into the right stocks, and we were in the stock market, and we never added another dollar, and your fees were 1%, 1% that you were being charged for someone to manage your money, you would be about $775,000 at 35 years later at age 70 when you retire. If you have a fee that's 2% that you're being charged on your money, and you never added a dollar to that $35,000, in 35 years at age 70, you would have almost 10 years of money gone out of your account, because you would now, the compound interest for your money, there's compound fees. You would now be down to about $400,000 and some thousand, almost $300,000 lost, because your fees are only 1% more. And if you're at a 3% like some people, you would be way lower than even that, probably closer to $100 and some thousand. So Tony Robbins had asked the buffet guy, you guys know who he is, and he could eat at any buffet he wants, and he said, if you could tell wealthy people what to do, or people that are wanting to get wealthy, what are the 3 things? He said, what would your advice be? He said the first one would be, I am so grateful that I live in America because the opportunities are so great. Number 2 would be, I have good genes. I've lived a long time to be able to see things come to pass and work. And number 3 is compound interest. See, as you live and grow and you save, it's the same thing with Theodore. It's the same thing that I mentioned about the index funds and fees. It's your compound interest, but also compound fees and the compound decisions in our life. Every single day, we're making a decision, and we're going to compound every thought and belief and behavior. And in 20 years, I will either be better, in a better place in my life to be able to live the remaining days of my life in a place that I choose, the way I choose, if I act now. Because I spent a lot of years in a limiting belief, or in blockages, or affirmations, or any of the things that I did that weren't healthy. And I thought that they were helping me survive, when all along they were really hindering me to get to where I really wanted to be. And that's what we're going to uncover. So Jeff, can you do this next part with me? What's your money mindset is, we took a test.
Very easy test, very simple, very quick.
Very simple test. And we're going to have you guys, any of you that are on there, take this test right now on your phone or this. It literally is going to take you 3 minutes to take. And you're going to see your answer. It's https:// www.goldmanpfm.com. It's a long one. I guess I should have just sent it to you guys.
Did you send it to us?
I sent it to you on my post. So if you go on my post and click on there, I'll take you right there. It's on the post. It's like 5 little questions.
It's on your Facebook post?
Not today's, the couple days ago. I'll show you.
If you just go to goldmanpfm.com, it'll take you there. You'll see, take the quiz. Take the money mind quiz.
No, I lied, it's not that. I'm sorry.
Oh, there it is. It
right? It'll literally take you guys 3 minutes to
Money
do
mind
this.
quiz?
Yep. Yeah, we just need to go to, we just need to go to goldmanpff.com.
Good job, Jeff.
Is it the Money Mind quiz?
Yes.
Yep. And it's free. It's only about 5 or 6 little questions, and they're really simple. It's not like the KPA.
And you don't have to put your primary email or your real phone number.
Oh, right? I just put it, I don't need it?
You need something because they need to send you the results.
And if you don't have a junk email that you use for all that kind of stuff, you need to create one.
That's
Because
a
they
bad
don't have
idea.
it, yeah.
I don't do that.
Got to protect your ID, protect your identity. If you don't have a Google phone number, you should get one.
One more question. Please indicate the most message. Just not ready. Just make it better.
goldmanpff.com. pff.com. And you don't even need to do the HTTPS or the www, just that. Should have Jeopardy music playing in the background.
I know.
Could have guessed this without taking a step. Yeah, me too.
All right, so most of you guys are almost done. We're gonna move and show you what we have here, for sake of time. What is your money mindset personality? There are 3 common areas. It's happiness, protection, and commitment. Jeff, you wanna come up and do this part? And talk about, did you know this about me before you even married me? Or after?
When we were dating, I got a really good idea of it. That you enjoyed fine things, you enjoyed spending money to either do fun stuff or pamper yourself or have nice clothes. That you enjoyed having the ability to have the funds to do the things you wanted to do.
That makes much sense, yeah.
That's happiness, yeah.
So mine came out as happiness, and if you want to click through, so it just tells you the percentage, where I was. Happiness, I'm 57% happiness, I'm 29% commitment, and I'm 14% protective. Now, I wondered 3 years ago if my happiness would even have been higher before I even started looking at money. Because,
I really think it would have.
yeah, I probably would have been 5%, 3%. All right, so this basically just gives us, I won't read it all, but primary influencer, but my spending will usually be thriving on. Jeff, you want to read this? This was yours today.
So primary influence for happiness, spending usually thrive on living life to its fullest, no big surprise there. And this is the dangerous part, sometimes beyond their means.
Yep, I did.
Savings can feel frustrated and impatient, definitely Michelle.
Definitely.
At the thought of having to save, planning may value near-term rewards over planning for the future. Safety net can have blind spots that result in an underfunded safety net. Risk-taking tend to be overly optimistic and underprepared for a negative outcome. That's why she didn't want to hear the $15,000 we've spent. timing, often quick to make important decisions and seize opportunities presented. Now that can be that can be a tool if used wisely.
Yeah. And then my secondary was commitment.
And so commitment, spending, tend to prioritize spending, supporting the people and causes they care about. Savings can run short on funds for their own needs as they support others. Planning usually considers the other's opinions and how their actions can impact them. Safety net may focus on helping others regardless of their resources. Risk-taking often leave important decisions to others rather than taking control. Timing frequently put off their own financial needs to help others. And then protection, the protected mindset often focuses on cost, delays gratification, and live well within their means. Saving tend to focus on saving can be critical of those who spend money freely. Planning careful, meticulous, and motivated to protect themselves and loved ones. Safety nets seldom feel that their safety net is large enough. Risk-taking, usually prepared for bad outcomes, can be apprehensive about risk and dislike losing. Timing may require a high degree of certainty, potentially missing opportunities.
This category is very interesting because the protective person never feels they have enough money. And I remember two friends, did you, are you surprised? Is that you?
No, I'm happiness. All
You're
the way.
happiness, always.
But then I'm equal on the other.
Well, that's pretty close, yeah. This category, I remember a friend, and I would get so mad at her that she would listen to her husband, and he was, and back then I was not in a great place in my marriage, back in my old marriage, and I used to say, just don't listen to his budget things, and he was an accountant. He would tell her, our budget for groceries is done. You should have did a better job. And she's like, I need milk. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I used to get so angry. But when you live in this place, now he's bought an airplane and everything else because he lives in this place, and he's built a big business, but he's on such a tight budget, they will not buy themselves a sandwich. They will go and miss lunch if you go too far off to this area. And not saying it's bad, there's no judgment, but there were just times because I live in the happiness, and you'll look at those and you'll give advice based on where you lie. What I think is very interesting, and Jeff and I talk a lot about, God gives you each other, because if there were two Michelles, one of us would be necessary. If there were two Jeffs, one of them would be necessary. And we're very different, but we complement each other when we know the goal's the same. And we can help each other when we understand each other. And this just goes into my strengths again, and then your challenges. You guys will all have this on your test. My strengths, I focus on resources of building rich experiences, which Jeff said that's what I love to do. And even, I'm decisive even with big decisions. Positive outlook on the finances in the future. I'm always positive. I tell Jeff, don't worry about it. We can do this.
Make more money.
We can just make more money. And kind of like one of you guys, oh, your family. Yeah, we can make more money. We can do this because they believed in themselves. And today I'm the same way. I'm like, Jeff, it's okay. I'm not going to make money for months. I can go make more money. And on my KPN story, you can see that where I start over and make a lot of money, start over, make a lot of money. It's just how I look at things. And then challenges and opportunities. Often it doesn't feel like I have enough. I desire for instant gratification and saving for the future, and can be too casual about decisions for future risk. I would tell Jeff, like, we need to go to Europe every single year, and he's like, oh, okay, well, let's think about this. And I'm like, well, we have to go, it's so amazing. And just different challenges and opportunities. All right, this is Jeff's. No surprise. But I was a little bit surprised on certain things.
Yes.
I thought he was going to be higher on protective and higher on commitment. And
Because that's where all my inner battles live,
Yes.
is in protection. Everything that I grew up learning and experiencing, I got a lot of that from my grandfather, and he was the consummate saver. He was the consummate saver at the expense of living life to its fullest. He was the consummate saver at the expense of hurting relationships, where a little bit of generosity and a little bit of flexibility in the budget that you put together would have made life experiences, and I'm being very vague because I don't want to get all into it, would have made life experiences maybe a little bit more enjoyable in that family environment. And
I remember one comment you said about your father, grandfather, that I'll share. It's your mom's dad. and he was really a big piece of your guys' life, that he gave you a car, and then you were just like most college boys or high school boys, that car didn't last very
Oh,
long.
I ran it into the ground.
You ran it in the ground, and then you went back and asked him, I love what he told you.
He said, I gave you a car already, I'm not giving you anything else.
Yeah, you had your one chance, and now you're done, and.
Now you get to go buy your own car.
Yeah, and I'm like, I love that. And there's a saying, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, we are to bless our children's children. And if we don't plan, and because his grandfather, Jeff looks at it, there was some stuff that he was way too much in the protective, but the money he gave his mom, when his mom passed 2 years ago, his money did end up coming to Jeff, and I said, he blessed you in a longer way, and he did exactly what the Bible was saying, and I think your mom did such a good job living out that money, because it wasn't a whole lot, but she still left money for her children. It was his child's children, so, children's children.
And where I was going with that is my norm, my inner vows live in protection, but not to sound a little cheesy, but because of Keller Williams, I've evolved a lot into the commitment piece.
That's so good.
Because of the changes in my mindset. Taking bold a whole bunch of times, looking at these different affirmations that we live and we breathe. And to be completely honest with you as well, I learned about tithing. And I don't want to go all into that, but I've been shown things that, hey, it's okay to, let's take a little bit of this fund money. Let's give it to some people. Let's bless some people. I've gotten some incredible joy from leaving Christmas tips for great servers. $100 tip for a server. Not that I'm doing it to hear this, but hearing them go back into the back and screaming and yelling and saying nobody's ever done this before. I mean, come on, you don't get those kind of emotions and feelings, from a whole lot of things. Running and buying a girl in Walmart buying a bike because she was talking to her mom about Santa bringing a bike.
I asked the silly question of like,
Michelle,
what's Santa bringing?
having zero boundaries, go, she's gonna get a bike.
And the mom's like, no.
Mom's not. So I'm like, I take off and I go buy her a bike.
And you weren't like that when I first met you.
I was totally protection.
He was like grandpa all the way up here
Totally
to protection. And I would once in a while see, and if I didn't understand him, I would think he was a tightwad or he's not about giving. And it was a real big thing for me that I had to learn because I was so unhealthy under the happiness category. Just bless them, we'll be fine. But that's why he had a savings and I didn't.
The great message about that is if you have a spouse or somebody that you work with in your family on your finances, if you work together on this finance stuff, you'll find that you're going to heal a lot of the things you're kind of out of kilter on.
Right.
Maybe you're too far to one side. When you work on these things together, I've grown a whole bunch because of her. Let's go, let's spend, let's have fun, and she's grown a whole bunch
To
by
get into
going,
these categories.
hey, if we're gonna go have fun, if we're gonna bless people with money, let's make sure we take profit first. We put savings, we've got our finances, we've got ourselves set up for a great future.
You're gonna laugh as we uncover stuff in the next couple of months about me wanting to buy our first investment property, and he's like, absolutely not. And then exactly everything I wrote out for him that was gonna happen on his house, it was a $200,000 blessing that we would have got. And then even the guy that knew us said, I don't even want you to put it in your name, Michelle, so you don't have the tax issues on it. Keep it in my name.
Fix it up,
Do what
get
you
it
want,
done,
sell it, no
I'll
taxes.
carry you.
And Jeff said no.
Oh my gosh.
Jeff said no, and I wouldn't go against him. That was the one thing I did learn. It's like, I'm like, all right, I think it's a bad choice, but if you don't want me to get it, and then he comes back and says,
Because I was totally living in the protection
Protection.
mindset. I did not see the incredible opportunity that this was. And it cost us $200,000.
and I'll flip that. When we moved to Texas 10 years ago, I felt, again, this is vulnerability, I felt like I was too good to live in a $200,000 house, because we had 2 houses with all this furniture, and I wanted to live in Cinco Ranch, and I wanted to have a 3,000, 4,000 square foot house, and we couldn't afford it because of my credit, even though he was financing everything. So for 5 years, we rented these houses. I added it up when I was sitting down doing our numbers, and I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars because I wanted to live in this house that I never even did things in or host things in. And he said, if you let us live in this $200,000 house, we can own it and we'll move up every few years. Exactly what I should have did, and I threw that money away. So there's times that we both have made decisions that would have moved us further because of our bad programming or beliefs. We missed some opportunities that we're growing from and learning. So this is where he sits. And as we wrap up, these are his strengths, and they'll tell you again the same things, is that he is dedicated to his family and friends, and he is. He will even say yes when he wants to say no, because if it's his friends or family, he wants to bless them and be there.
And because of, like I was saying, because of the shift in my mindset with Bold and taking the one thing couples retreat, the one thing retreat,
That was amazing.
man, was
With
that
Jay
was
and
eye-opening, and we were on polar opposites of the side of the financial
Full
piece.
transparency, we were in there, we were crying and fighting.
Yeah, our marriage was like, it really kind of like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
And he looked at me and he said, and in full transparency, he said, I think it's more important for you to make $1 million in real estate than our
It is to
relationship.
save our relationship.
To save our relationship. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Which is not the nicest thing to say.
I know, that's ridiculous. Again, and I had just talked to Jay, and I had just walked back, and I had just said how important it was to Jay about getting me to $1 million, and that he wasn't helping me. And I came back, and he said those exact words, and God says, that's good. You're going to lie to him straight to his face. And where I was is that that's ridiculous. We love each other. We'll make it through. We'll just have money to pay for counseling. And he was like,
I don't want to
I don't want to go to counseling. I don't want to spend the money. Because here's where he lied, and he still does, and this is where I push him, and where he has to get uncomfortable. He will have concerns that not having enough, it takes too much time to make money. He looks at me and says, before he came into, he still lives there too, but when he was in corporate, he's like, Michelle, they want me to take on to be a regional manager or this or stuff, but I don't know if I want to do that much work. And he looks at that because his belief is that to become a millionaire, he's going to have to work his way there, and he just doesn't think that the money's important for his happiness.
Is it worth the effort?
And he lives in harmony. And harmony for me is on my last 34. I'm like, let's go in the war zone. Let's make the money. We'll figure it out. It's just how we show up. That's where we can balance each other if we get on the same page. Otherwise, it's two people hitting the block wall. All right. The last thing we're going to share as we wrap up here in 5 minutes is the Money app. And Jeff, you can talk about this too, about Mint. So there's a couple of apps. You can Google what are the best apps. We use Mint because that's easy for us, and a friend started to tell us about it.
And it's Intuit, and so their security is pretty darn good to this point. That's something that I'm extraordinarily focused on is identity theft, personal security, protecting your information. And Mint has some of the best security. The reason why I say that is the whole idea with a financial app is you want to feed everything into it. So we've got all of our bank accounts feeding into it. We've got all of our investments feeding into it. We tell it, you know, how much we owe on our mortgages, what our payments are, because one of the things that Mint does is it kind of intuitively looks at, hey, you've spent more this month than you did last month. Is there something you need to rebudget? These are the expected bills coming out. Hey, did you know that there's something that just came out here? So
I love it. I love it because my friend takes it to a really high level. She'll be one of our guest speakers. She's an agent in another company, and she knows that she goes to the dollar store once a week to get balloons, and now that she did it once, It automatically programs her dollar store into her open house category. She knows what her finance is for education, for bold, family reunion, it goes into that bucket. So she has it spread out even more detailed than our bank credit card, which it goes into food, gas, shopping, but it really tells, and it also tells you, I want to take a trip to Europe, it's going to cost me $10,000, here's the percentage I'm going to pull for you every single month. It'll do all kinds of tricks. So it's free. We're not telling you or promoting any of these, we're just,
advocating.
yes, we're just telling you what works for us, and as we get through this and we show you our net worth and where we're at, it tracks all our debt. It tracks, and I don't like this piece, I put our houses in there, and it actually pulled from Zillow. So they have Zillow value in there, and I'm like, whoa. But, and it showed the value of what our houses were, because we have a house in Phoenix, and our house here, and so it pulls the values. All right, this is another one. This is Dave Ramsey. Every dollar, I have not used this, but it's free also. Every dollar. You can watch it. This is Dave Ramsey's. He also tells you how to budget. There's free budgeting stuff. This, oh, they didn't put the last one because I didn't show her that one. All right, the other one that Wendy Papasan just sent me right now is, I don't remember hers, it's called Personal Capital. She used to use Mint all the time, but now that she's gotten more in depth for things she wants, she now is using Personal Capital, and she really likes Personal Capital. I think there's a small little fee, and she really likes that. And
When you get as diversified as they are, you start needing to, it's worth leveraging
that little bit piece.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll tell you, whatever app you choose to use, make sure it's something that is highly secured, like Jeff said. Also make sure that you contact your bank and make sure you're giving them all your information to pull from your accounts, all your data. That's something that they say yes is safe and that they would cover you if there was any fraud. I called the bank and I called them 3 different times to talk to 3 different people regarding that question. So you'll just want to check with that. Here's what's going to happen in the future. We are going to meet in the next 2 weeks because we have some ground to cover and lay some solid foundation. Then starting March, we'll meet once a month. We'll start our book in March. And we already have the first book, and it's based on the other group that's already been doing this, which is Wendy and them, what they started. I'm going to share all the books that they have talked about and they've been looking at. And then we're going to start the one book. Our meetings then would consist of your 5-year goal, your budget, your net worth being tracked in some paper, and to show that, to be able to be vulnerable with it and where
There's
you're
a
going to
lot
grow.
of really simplified versions of that, yes.
Yep. And then also we're going
What
to
time
talk
is that
about
class?
the
I'm sorry?
Huh?
26th, what time is the class?
The 26th, I believe it's at 10 o'clock if this time works for you. But I'll check on the calendar because they booked it already. Here's what I'll also tell you. The more you guys get together, the more relationships you're going to build. And there's somebody that helps Jeff and I. And as we start to feel safe to open up, you're going to find the people in your life that are pushing you to that direction. We really are the sum of the 10 people we hang out with. And if you can go back and look at your YouTube channel, and I'll be right with you. No, let me go back to it. Let me do it now.
I just had one question. How did you guys have a resource or a way of figuring out what your net worth of your business, what your business is worth? Because it's not
I
a
love
super
that.
tangible item.
And we haven't put a net worth on our business, and I love that because as we do this with you, you're going to help us grow. Because there's a lot of stuff we're not doing, like the index fund, our fees. We're going to learn that all with you, and we're going to learn the budget. In our net balance, we don't have anything with our business. We just have what's came in.
I've got some resources from my banking days that people that do that for you. The most simplified, it's not super accurate, the most simplified one that I've seen is you have to present a business plan to the SBA,
Right.
and the SBA does a small business valuation on your business that way.
And then we'll uncover those things too together. So
Because
there's
I've been
gonna be
told
lots
3
of-
different answers that were very drastically different. So I'm like,
And
how
that's
do we
not
figure
easy.
that out?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
a good
and
question.
the longer you've been in business, the little bit easier it is to quantify the value of your business, taking in your profits and your losses, using your P&L, and then you project out for the time that you've been in business.
And then we're going to talk about taxes, the ugly, dirty word of taxes, because I live in scarcity. And when I took this position, you've heard me say that Jeff paid all the finances, and all of a sudden I told him not to pay them. And I said, I understand I'm gonna get a fine, I understand we're gonna get a fee, I'm willing to pay that, because I'm scared that the new position I'm taking in this role is that I'm not gonna be able to live the lifestyle that I want that year, and what if I need that money? And he
And
said,
I was scared as all get out that I would be able to perform at a good level as a real estate agent.
and he allowed his little concern, never told me, he said, I'll listen to her and do that. He gets the bill for being late, from not paying 1 year. This isn't our tax bill, this was our penalty bill. And I knew I was gonna get a small penalty for not paying quarterlies, but then I get paid the tax, so you get like 2 or 3 more penalties. He said, do you wanna know the bill for not paying it? And guess what? He always took my money, every paycheck, and we'll show you that. He took our taxes and put them in a tax account, so the money was there. Because when I used to not be married to him, I used to catch up the next year. I would always, January, February is gonna be for last year's taxes. I had the money sitting there, that's why it was even more painful.
For an entire year.
He said, do you wanna know the bill I'm about to pay to the tax bill, just for the
The
fear?
IRS.
The IRS, and I said, go ahead and tell me, because half the time I'll be like, don't tell me. Tell him.
Was that the $12,000?
$8,000.
Oh, the $8,000.
$8,000 fine for my money sitting in my account that didn't grow the interest, that I had to write an extra check because of my fear. And God's like, how does that feel for not trusting? And it was an $8,000 pain that I'm like, never, don't ever wait. Don't ever wait. So a lot of pain that we've gone through and a lot of eye-opening discoveries. All right, so that's that. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Hopefully you can share this with people you know. And just get around people that are going to do this and talk about it. I called some people up and said, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing that? And I asked, it's really fun when you call, if your parents are still around. Both my parents are in heaven already. And I called my siblings and asked them how we grew up with money, what their thought was. And called my children and asked them how I showed up with money. And I was like, whoa. So some of it was eye-opening and some of it was like, I really was like that, and I'm like, and just like you're exactly like that. Blind spots, right? And so it's been fun.
Taking a little bit of time to look backward to move forward is really, really valuable when it comes to finances. And if you have somebody that you do finances with, your spouse, your partner, whatever, having them along this journey, taking this journey with you, is so amazingly. The things that can happen are truly amazing.
We'll also tell you if your spouse doesn't do this with you, don't. It's like bold. We come home and we're like, don't say you can't or try or all this stuff.
You're
I'm like,
throwing up purple
yeah,
all
you're
over
throwing
them.
up purple all over them. And we're like, they're not in this at this moment with you, so understand that. Whoa. It's just the whole piece of that.
That's awesome.
Anyways, well, I hope again that you got something out of it, and that you guys will come back, and then we'll do this together, and we'll continue to grow together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for my wonderful rose.
Happy Valentine's